What's up, everybody? Fast Hours Podcast, episode 68. Rory Flynn, Drew Brucker, back in the building. 2-week hiatus. This one's your fault. I'm blaming it on you.
This was my fault. Yeah.
Completely your fault. Blame Rory.
Always.
Not always, but no, man. I'm glad we're back though. I'm really chomping at the bit for this one. I think lots just changed over the last 2 weeks. Obviously, we've got a lot to talk about. I think we're chatting just before we hopped on here about a number of different things that we can bring up and talk through. That's going to be helpful for everybody to hear. But let's just back up a little bit, man. How's everything been since we last talked? What's new?
Good. Faye's second birthday was this week, so I now have a 2-year-old. So that's going to be, I don't know where the time went. Anyone who's been listening to us basically was here.
That's right.
Like right before the baby. So now she's 2, which is, I don't know, just nuts. It's weird. But, that craziness where it's like, again, everything is moving so fast, and I say it every podcast, and I just open X and I turn, I don't know if anyone else does this. Just open X, make like 5 or 6 scrolls and just be like, I can't do this right now.
Oh yeah. Yeah. No, dude, 100%.
Bad idea. Yeah. Bad idea. It's like you have to like post.
You don't want to see it. You don't even want to see what's changed.
I don't want to see it anymore. Now it's like you build something, and it's like by the time you build something, there's something that comes out. It's like, oh, that just made it 10 times easier. It's like, what am I even doing?
Exactly.
Building.
It's a huge problem right now. Very big problem.
And it's kind of crazy with the I think everyone probably here, if you're not on the Claude Code or the Codex train, like it's like become a central hub for everything. Like it manages my entire life and my day and my computer and my work and everything. And then when it goes down, it's like you ever go to, whenever you had the last like office job that you were in, there ever a day when like the internet's down and everyone just looks at each other like, what do we do now? Like I remember that used to happen in New York every once in a while. Like the building would go out and you'd be like, everyone sit there like, oh, internet's down. And it's like, well, I can't open my email. I can't check my documents. What do I do?
I don't remember too many of those days for me, unfortunately, but that sounds nice.
It was just funny because it would just be like everyone kind of like nervous pacing around, like trying to look like they were doing something, but everyone knows the internet's out.
Yeah.
Just like,
do you remember that? I remember like early in my career, when you're like just getting started and you're trying to figure out how work actually works. Just like purposely trying to make yourself look busy in certain situations. Yeah.
Or just like act like you know what you're talking about when you have no idea, and then try to Google it later. Oh yeah, totally. And then like go on Google, what the hell did they mean? Because you don't want to look like an idiot.
Oh yeah. I don't miss driving into the office. But I definitely do miss sort of like the camaraderie aspect, and just kind of feeling. I don't know, like its own environment, like just COVID, obviously, and the remoteness has taken that away. And, I think you and I spend a lot of time on our own, unfortunately. Just doing work, heads down. I get caught up in this basement sometimes. It's a nice office, but I don't have a window. That's a problem. I got to go coffee shop to coffee shop. Even when I'm at the coffee shop, I don't, usually strike up too many conversations. I'm just like focused on getting stuff done. And I'm not the most social person, but I do need more social interaction than I'm getting right now, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
My problem was the opposite in the office. Is if someone got chattering, I was like, I don't know how to get away.
That too.
I can't get away. And then people would always come to my desk and like just start, and I'm just like, okay.
And so you'd kind of fix your eyes on your screen, hoping they would kind of get the picture,
Yeah, something like that. Like, sorry, I had a call in like 2 minutes, like one of those things. Then the coffee shop was always like I did that when I started freelancing like 10 years ago. And it was like the coolest thing ever. It's like, I'm working at an effing coffee shop. And then I'd go to the coffee shop, and then you start to realize like all the little things about a coffee shop, like especially in New York. I don't know if it's for everyone, but I'm like, I got to go to the bathroom because I'm drinking coffee. I can't just leave my computer out. I got to pack everything up, go to the bathroom, come back. Someone's probably in my seat.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
See,
like,
I can leave the computer out and
no,
stuff.
I can't. It's like my whole life. I was like, it's like I can't lose that. I also at that point in my life couldn't afford to buy another one. So it was like I can't lose this. I can't have something happen to this thing.
My problem with these
While
coffee
there.
shops too is they'll have like some of them. It's like one bathroom,
Yeah.
one or two, and it's
Yeah.
like a crowded place, and it's like you can't. I'm not gonna be standing in line for 10, 15 minutes. So like I'll
Correct.
get up every once in a while and check, and the other day I was at this coffee shop that I love, but it's just like they have one bathroom, and
Wanna
it's
know-
like what? This is a coffee shop, man. Like. It's crazy. It's crazy. So that like, eventually I'm just like, okay, I'm just going to wait till I get home to take a pee, but
Want to know one of the most particular, like weird, like particular. I feel like I'm Larry David right
Give
now.
it to me.
Like curb my enthusiasm. Like I would purposely switch coffee shops if their chairs were too low, because I don't like having like the desk like a high table and trying to type. Like I hate that.
Okay.
Like, if it wasn't the right like table to chair ratio where I'm
I like that.
comfortable,
Yeah.
and if you're like slipping keys or like your hand, you're always like readjusting your arms. Like I don't want to do that. It's like my one. There's like 2 or 3 things in my life that I'm particular about. It's
That's
definitely
one of them, huh?
desk to chair ratio.
Interesting. So are you
Higher, better,
are you at the
lower,
point where
not
you
good.
know the exact measurements of what you're looking for? Like if you were to buy a new desk and the chair height and
Well, you got to get
stuff like that, or
a
what?
chair that can go up and down. Like that's the whole point. It's like some days I'm feeling maybe
Yeah.
I want to sink in a little bit, but some days I just want to be up. I don't know. I like to be like face in the computer, which is probably like the most unhealthy thing you can do, like for your eyes and your brain
Do
and
same,
your radiation
same.
or
I mean,
whatever,
I like I'll use 2 screens for this, but I'm not a 2-screen
Yeah.
guy. I'd rather have one screen sitting right in front of me that just alt tab kind of stuff, and I just feel like it's closer to me. It's easier to control. I can move faster.
Do you want to know my real desk? Right there.
No.
I lay down. That's how
No,
I work.
see,
the
I
best.
can't lay and work. If I lay, I'm done. There's no way I'm.
It's
working.
on my stomach though. I'm like it puts me like right in the everything you guys have seen has come from a trackpad and me laying on a bed, and everything. I only take calls from the desk when I have to sit upright. I don't like these are weird things. These are weird.
I like it.
Weird
I like it.
things,
Yeah, yeah. We gotta start the show off with some weird things.
He's a creative. That's the best. I had this conversation with someone in the park the other day that was like the best thing that ever happened to like creatives was like everyone started dressing like a creative, because then when you go places and it's like semi-formal attire, if you show up in like a hat and like a sweatshirt, everyone's just like, oh, they're a creative. Like you just
Yeah,
you're like
yeah.
an ultimate pass. Like,
Yeah.
oh, the creatives here. Like don't try to control them. they're like
Yeah, we got an edge. We got an edge about us.
yeah, there's something to be said about that, where it's just like, well, I'll certainly take that pass whenever I can get it.
Let's go.
Yeah,
Let's go.
But dude, what
Oh.
this is.
Last little thing. I feel like I just got to tell you this. I don't know
Okay.
how relevant this will be to the rest of the audience. I apologize. I showed the girls the movie 3 Ninjas last week. Oh, loved it. They loved it.
Yes,
And that was such a big part of my childhood. Me and my brother loved 3 Ninjas. And then, we watched, of course, 3 Ninjas Kick Back. We had to watch second
of
one.
course.
I don't acknowledge the third one because the third one's just absolutely terrible. But that was a fun little last week experience. Got to show the girls 3 Ninjas, then we did 3 Ninjas Kick Back. And if you guys don't know what we're talking about here, I'm sorry. This is
Come on.
that 90s nostalgic, era where, I mean, like those movies don't exist, but it's just like, oh man, it was such a key part of childhood. Me and my brother thought we knew karate after watching that stuff. So,
That's the basketball scene. One of my favorites.
basketball scene. Yeah.
Classic.
The laxative scene.
I haven't watched it in years, but
Tum Tum.
yeah. Little hack on YouTube. Didn't know they had a bunch of movies for free, like kids movies, especially like the old ones. Like we fired up the other day Fern Gully and Rockadoodle. I don't know if you remember Rockadoodle.
Don't know that one.
Chicken. It was like a chicken that was like animated, but it was inspired by Elvis. So it's like chicken.
Okay.
Like, the big rooster is Elvis.
Interesting. I've never heard of that one.
Oh, it's a great one.
Okay.
It's a great great throwback.
Oh,
like
we
90s
did, and we
movie.
did Miss Doubtfire last week too. That
Oh,
was-
another good one. Yes. There. Again, why do we even try? Just go back to the classics.
dude. I mean, it's so good. All right, guys, we're done. We promise.
promise.
Let's talk what's going on, man. Because like we obviously we're out for about 2 weeks there. I mean, I wouldn't say there's anything major that's changed, but there has been a lot of different things that have changed. Maybe just kind of starting with something that feels like very straightforward. I mean, we saw the whole update with Freepik. Freepik is gone. Freepik is no longer there. It's now Magnific, which has been an interesting kind of story, right? We talked about Freepik and their evolution, from just being this icon and illustration shop to then, going AI route. And then they expanded this offering into like this whole sort of like creative operating system with AI. And then they just up and one day changed the name, which I like Magnific name better. And it sounds like that's why they did it. But I wasn't expecting to see that because just to take some of you back, I mean, they acquired Magnific. I don't know how, that was a long time ago now. I mean, 2+ years ago. I had no idea that would sort of take shape. I would have expected the Magnific website to fully dissolve by then, but it hadn't. It like kept being Magnific, and I always use Magnific in Magnific, not Freepik. So, just kind of a like really interesting
branding
thing to see that. And then you had, I think there was also like they hit, what was their ARR number? I think I saw their ARR number was 200 mil ARR.
Good. They quietly have one of the best like enterprise agreements from an indemnification standpoint for anyone that's looking for enterprise stuff.
Yes.
It's very business friendly, which is I think like it's a really good move because there's not many people that have the indemnification, but they do. So
they do
corporate accounts.
That's a really good point, actually, because I have a enterprise client who used them, but they were very strict on which models they could use. They only could use, I think it was, Nano Banana Pro, not even 2 yet, like things like that. Adobe Firefly, is very constrained. And then they onboarded here and they ended up getting all the clearance for all the other models. I'm just like, why couldn't you all done that sooner? Because I was operating under those constraints that you guys had for a long time. But that's a great point. The indemnification of what they offer is interesting. And I think they've got, I was trying to do some research. I think they have like almost 40 image models on there now, and I think 35 or 36 video models accessible now in one stack, which is crazy. I mean, that's massive. Yeah.
They're interesting because first off, I've had a few clients in the past that like tried to build their own like internal solutions where it's like they're trying to be like a model aggregator, but with only approved models. I'm like, you know how much effort you're going through to build this thing and to like keep it up and service it? Just like go to Freepik and like just choose the models that you want, and you are indemnified. You don't have to check out any of that stuff, and it's like you're probably spending just as much per API hit as you are while using the corporate account. Right, the corporate or the enterprise account, which is just like this is boring stuff, people. But these are the conversations that we get into.
These are like real. These are real conversations. And then the other constraint we had was like, with that client, if you wanted to get a new model approved, it just took weeks, maybe months, right? So it's like, okay, if Banana 2 just dropped, how long before we can actually use that? Yeah. And then by the time we get approval on that, is there a new model? Right? So it's just always lagging behind. If you have something like this, you don't have to worry about that. And I think that is an interesting footnote, I think, for anybody to know if you're talking about potential clients or clients that you have that they do have some of these constraints. I mean, these larger companies do have some very specific constraints that they have to operate in from a security standpoint, from a liability standpoint. So yeah, I think that's a really interesting thing to mention too.
Because Freepik to me is just like it's very user friendly because it's not one thing or the other for business specifically. Like it's not like you have to use nodes or you have to use like their own. Like you can sort of use whatever you're comfortable with, and they have everything. And they're probably the fastest at getting stuff in there now at this point. and they just keep making improvements. It's so big, like it's so hard to even train anybody to use it unless you've been using it for a while.
Well, I
But
noticed that they
yeah,
are starting. They've got really they've got people that are now a team that's onboarding these clients now. I mean, because when
good.
I first
Has to be that way.
had them on there, they were asking me to do trainings for them. It's like, yeah, like let's kind of break this into phases. There's a lot here, right?
Yeah.
And then eventually, I guess as part of these agreements now, they're starting to factor that in and doing it, which is great. I mean, I think that part of it for us is hard because there are so many different models and platforms, and obviously I knew that platform quite well, but we can't be expected to know all these things because they're all changing. The relevancy of them is changing. The different things that they offer is changing. So it does make sense for larger, brands to be able to offer that. I know Runway, for example, does that,
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's it. I mean, like, look, the consumer game, the B2C game, can only take you so far. You got to be business friendly at this point. Like, that's who's going to use it the most, and that's who's going to spend the most, and that's who's going to keep everyone else afloat. So it's, I think it was interesting because it felt very funny. Like, I think you mentioned this before we were talking. Like, if you're using like Seedance on there, wipe out like half your monthly credits for one video, and it's still being called like Freepik. I was like, it's not really that free anymore.
No.
Maybe that's why it's impressive though that you can at this stage can just like totally flip branding for name, identity, everything, and it's just like whatever, pick it up and go. Like all that. I think like all that sometimes overvalued. Like not you're the branding guy though. I mean like sometimes I think if you just make the change and everyone's still just like a sycophant, they'll still just be a sycophant. Like it doesn't really matter. It's not like there's that attached to the word or the logo free pick.
Yeah.
Nike, different story. But like, free pick, we're going to change our entire name and appearance. But whatever.
Yeah, I mean,
Keep on moving.
and I mean, most of what they did, I mean, it's like the site is exactly the same. It's just different colors,
Yeah.
and everything is laid out. So I mean, maybe that'll change right eventually. But like in terms of their actual launch and deployment of the brand revamp, it's just the name and the colors on the site. I mean, they've internally, got to change all those existing assets, but there wasn't really like this big change. And then to your point, I think maybe the name itself, right? Like Freepik, it's just it's not really it doesn't really lend itself to what's actually in that product anymore, or the way that they're pricing,
Yeah.
these things.
Definitely not free.
But interesting nonetheless. So you got that. One other just like little footnote too before we get into some of the larger topics is did want to bring this up because we did mention. Well, no, we didn't. You and I were talking about this before, but Pinterest has now developed their own internal AI image model trained on their own training data, which I thought
They have good
is
stuff.
super interesting because to have that available as an internal tool, I don't think we've seen that yet, which is very, very interesting for maybe other brands that rely super heavily on, they've got all this training data available visually.
Yeah.
That's kind of an interesting thing. I'm curious to see how that takes place, but it's an in-house model trained on, exclusively just their content. I think that shipped, I don't know. So it was sometime in Q1.
Yeah.
I don't think that's a tool that's available outside of, Pinterest employees, but it's called Pinterest Canvas. And yeah, I just think that's like one of those things we hadn't seen yet, which could be one of those things that we could see more often here in the future.
I'd be surprised. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if you see it from Meta sooner or later. I wouldn't be surprised if you see it from, I mean, obviously TikTok did it, ByteDance did it with Seedance and like CapCut and everything that they're using all that data to generate the model. They have probably the most vertical format data in the world video wise. Google's, take the same models. Just whoever has the data wins right now. You can. Pinterest got excellent stuff. Pinterest has like quality photography. It doesn't have to sift through the trash, right? Like it's got really good stuff because people only put pretty things up on there. Really,
Yeah.
I still go all the time. Like I'm on
they
Pinterest,
have
like,
one of the better algorithms too. I mean, like anytime, like as soon as I get back on there, whatever's on that initial screen, my landing page screen, without even a scroll, there's something there that catches my eye that I'm super interested in saving, or you know. So I like
pinning.
there's I don't personally I don't do too many pins. You know, I don't do the pinning route, but I do have boards, right, that I save.
Yeah, that's what it is.
And yeah, I like you're right though. I mean, there's some really quality stuff there. Cosmos is similar, has a different type of feel to it, but
Yeah.
yeah.
But it's interesting. Like I think a lot of these, they realize now that that's just, they're sitting on a gold mine. You know, that's a gold mine, and you know if they're using it for internal stuff, I don't know what are they trying to build more stuff for Pinterest, or are they trying to just like use it themselves and not have to worry about paying for anyone else's stuff? Which I don't know. I mean, I don't know how that plays out in the long run. Always like just like, is it better to develop internal now?
I don't know either.
Is it-
Yeah, and I think that's the debate, right? Like I don't know the answer to that. When I first heard that, I thought, oh, that's a great idea. But then I also thought about that, I think, in sort of all the perspectives of, is that actually helpful or not, right? Like, because if you're training, I mean, then you got to continuously training, right? And you got to continuously do these things. Otherwise, you know, it's just a sunk cost. So, I mean, you would have to be all in on that. It's also curious to see, like, you know, do you need additional headcount for that team, right? I mean, I'm sure that's, you know, Pinterest got a lot of money, but yeah, still, those are things that you have to weigh into consideration. I mean, it's not a cheap thing to do, even if you've got all that training data. So, yeah, I don't know. I guess TBD on whether that's a good thing or not. You know, because again, like if you're a brand and you're trying to create on brand imagery for these different things, at the end of the day, it all comes down to the context of your brand. So if you're able to communicate that with AI and, you know, have that sort of identity wrapped, and, you know, you don't necessarily need your own model, but
yeah, it's just like an interesting case. Like there's, you know, probably transition into with that being said, like I've seen some interesting decisions lately that kind of like caught my eye. Like the whole, like Salesforce to me made a great move. This is just my opinion. Again, that they're going more of like a headless system where they're realizing that, you know, having their whole sort of business model based on their, you know, UX UI and like having people get on, because Salesforce, I don't know if you ever use Salesforce. Like my first company, like we got Salesforce, and then because I was like the young kid and I don't know anything about dev at that point, they're like, oh, you can set it up and like you can figure it out and like we build it for us. And I'm like,
it was so
man,
ugly
this
for a
is
long
so
time.
hard.
It was hard. You know, when
Yeah.
I first of all, I haven't, to answer your question, I haven't used it in a long time now, probably 10
Yeah,
plus
it's
years
been
now.
10 years.
But I always thought, you know, HubSpot was the better CRM sort of
Cleaner.
thing for marketers, you know, and it just kind of like, it had more of that UX appeal and design appeal,
Apple
and
feel
just
to
like,
it.
yeah, it just felt like easier to navigate. Salesforce to me always felt like just, they didn't care about that. It was just like jamming as many things as possible into the tool, you know, into the platform. And I remember when I was at a company, about 8 or 9, 10 years ago now. I mean, there were people, their whole job was knowing Salesforce as an expert internally to educate, you know, and get people integrated and adopted for the company. This was like a Series D, Series E company, but they had those people. And, you know, just to get you using it and knowing how to use it, because it's such a complicated thing. There's so many things about it that, I don't know. I just thought I've never liked what they had to offer, you know, as a marketer. But
You had to have like an internal person that they like placed in your team to just like operate Salesforce, you know, like it's, to build it to your specs, to like maintenance it. But that's what I'm saying, which is like seeing them go headless, which is interesting because it's like, oh, we're recognizing that it doesn't really matter anymore. It's like everything's going to be agentic. It's like if it can just interact with the infrastructure, if I can just tap into Claude and Claude goes in there and pulls the data that I need and brings it back and runs reports and does whatever I need to. Like it doesn't need to be this whole UX UI experience, which, you know, you're starting to see it with the other companies now, like Higgsfield. I was mentioning beforehand. Higgsfield, for all of their shitty marketing in the past and whatever. They're making smart moves now, which is like, you got to highlight when I think things are interesting and smart. This whole being able to tap into Higgsfield from Claude with an MCP, right? Like that being not everyone having to worry about building the UX UI. So I mean, it's going to be, if you think about how many models they have, Freepik has, whatever, at a certain point, it's going to be so overrun. It'll be like going in Photoshop when everything has like 70 drop downs and like 70 options.
Yeah.
Like I don't even know what to use. So it's just like, let's just open up the operating system and the infrastructure in there and just have Claude sift through it all. And like, this is what I want to do, having skills based in there and things like that. I think it's just smart. I think like everyone's starting to realize that the LLM and your little, your agents are going to be like the way you interact with things. Like that's who's going to be touching stuff, not like less manual. I just think it's future pacing, which is interesting to me. I think it's smart what they've done. And now with supercomputer and some of the other things coming from like it's like I've seen it. Like I was always wondering why no one was catering to the performance marketing world, right? I think I've mentioned this on the podcast before, where it's like performance marketers, meta advertisers, they create so much stuff, like so many assets, and most of the stuff doesn't work. So you got to create more, and you got to create over and over and over again in bulk, whether that's static or video, and you just have to keep going and keep going and keep going, right? So Claude has an MCP for the, your meta ads manager. Now Claude has an MCP for Higgsfield to build like workflows and, like generate in batch. And they also just open source this, virality analyzer for your stuff. So you can see like where they're building towards and who they're catering to. It's always
have you run some of this stuff like worth showing?
For the Claude, for the Higgsfield
For any
MCP?
any of the any of the Higgsfield stuff, like, or supercomputer, like, do you have any examples? Because I've not run anything with Higgsfield. I've been trying to keep up with what they've got going on, and in just in general, right? Like my take on Higgsfield is similar in the sense that it always feels like they do know what people like us want. It's just like their business practices and ethical approach and transparency and, like the things that give them credibility and build trust has been the loose end. But like the way that they sort of package things and, all that has always kind of been pretty solid. They've been ahead of the game. Yeah.
Well, they realized it was just like people don't want to engineer at scale. They want to just tap into something that works, right? It's like they build the little workflows. They built like the camera controls. They built all these things from the start, right? That it was like, oh, let's just make this easier for you. Here, I didn't even see this. #1 affiliate marketing playbook in 2026. Like this is like prime performance. They know who's in here, who's spending money. Like it's interesting. Like again, you have your Higgsfield connector, your Meta connector. This is what this is just smart to me. It's, you get your marketing skills that they've added wherever the virality thing is that we're just seeing. Supercomputer now, which is like, again, you can access via your browser or remotely, like almost like you're talking to, OpenClaw via this way. But it's just smart. I think you're going to see a lot more people doing this. What's it called? Kling was doing something different, recently in a very similar fashion. This is just, to me, business-wise. Like I don't know how much this makes sense for the personal user to be like, spending all these money on API credits and hits and generating at bulk scale, but like that's.
But also, Rory, like there are plenty of people who listen to this now that I think have clients in this space too, and you guys know this. I mean, the way things are changing, we have to change with it. So it's just, we you kind of mentioned it before, but like we find a process or workflow we like, works really well for a couple months, and then all of a sudden it's like, I could still do it that way, and probably be okay for a little while. But it's like, if you're not at least playing around with these other potential, how do you really know it's the best way to do it? We have to experiment. We have to kind of keep up with this stuff. And I think this is one that I think personally, I need to probably try to find sometime, however I'm going to do that, to just kind of play with it and see what it would potentially mean for me and where it fits.
Yeah.
But I do think the Higgsfield thing is interesting.
So that like the bulk conversation. This is something that I wanted to. Have you used Codex for image generation yet? Like for ChatGPT image?
Inside of Codex,
Yeah.
no.
Ooh, it is a very interesting experience in there, and it's cool because now ChatGPT image is good again to
Yeah, yeah.
utilize.
But I mean,
But
tell me more about that. Tell us more.
So I was the other day. Let me see if I can actually find this here. Do I have it? I have so much stuff in here. It's unbelievable. Open right now because I'm
I think
putting
Codex
together a
just. I think they
presentation.
just released Codex for. It's on now mobile too, so you can actually do the code stuff from your phone.
Yeah, it is. They have computer control, which is you can do this stuff like the mobile experience now to me is so much like I opened it up the other day and was doing some stuff like it's so much easier than Claude makes it from the remote
Claude
access.
needs to get
Yeah,
that voice mode on ChatGPT's level too, because
yeah,
you can do the voice mode with Claude, but it's not nearly as long.
uh-huh.
Like you only get a certain amount of time. Like it's very short. ChatGPT, I mean, you can go for minutes. And so like I always like if I'm in Claude, I always use the voice with Claude there, and then I'll get capped, and then I have a tab open for ChatGPT, and then I'll just like continue it there, and then copy and paste the the transcription of what I said audio back over to Claude. But Claude needs to fix that. And you may be saying WhisperFlow. I've used WhisperFlow. I like WhisperFlow. I just don't want to pay for that.
Yeah,
That sort of capability. Again, I think that's like one of those things where I've seen people vibe code, like free replacements for WhisperFlow too. But ChatGPT's kind of like ahead there, or OpenAI's ahead there with the voice stuff.
yeah. There's like that's what I'm saying. Like there's like interesting stuff with Codex. Codex to me is really fast. I like it a lot. I use it for certain things. I think it over engineers a lot of stuff. But Claude kind of like if you use them in tandem together, they sort of like balance each other out. Like Claude always brings like the skeptical, being like, yeah, that's the same way ChatGPT is over ambitious about certain things, and Claude's like the realist. But like this was interesting the other day. I was trying to. I saw this video on Instagram that had like a really cool color grade. It was like a very flashy, like had like a very good like edge halation and stuff, and it was just a great color scheme. And I was like, I just want to replicate this. So I had it, a Codex you can do just about anything. So I had to download the video, pull the frames, analyze the frames, and then like create like a style around it.
Yeah.
Like I want to just like create basically like a standalone style, so I can just replicate it across. And then I go, can you just create 20 images of like like successive images of like this dog, just like a golden retriever in a scene with his owner who's fishing, and like that was it. I just said create 20 images. It was like because it's working locally and there's not like the Chat GPT limits. Like it just does 20 and it did it really fast. And
Okay.
I felt like some of these were super. I mean, it keeps it all. You see it from zoomed out, like very consistent from a color scheme perspective, like color grade perspective. I thought that was awesome. Just the way that it was able to sort of pull that all together. I love this image. It's like perfect. That one, we're not doing like mind bending stuff here, but the fact I can do 20 at once, I probably could ask for 40.
Yeah.
But the cool thing that came out of it was I asked, because you see everyone's doing like these style guide things, or like the stuff with Seedance where it's the like the animated sort of
Storyboard.
storyboards, right? So I was like, what happens if instead of me, like, can we create like style reference from Midjourney, but in like a reference sheet, like what exactly we want to do here? So I took those images, right? I just said like, can we create like if you were like asking ChatGPT, if you were receiving one image and it had to have all of the things that you needed on it to just like replicate a style that would be transferred, and all I have to do is say like, you know, dog and human like in the back of a truck, dog and human like
Yeah.
camping, right?
Yeah.
And it keeps everything the same way
Yeah.
Midjourney style reference works. So it came up with this like document, which there's some like errors here, but it has the style locks. It gives me, I love that it has the exposure curve here, like midtones, shadows, like core tokens, things like that. Source like a graphic image as like where these sort of like these were pulled from the video itself. Camera logic, color grade rules, and then prompt nucleus, which I was like, this is cool. Like it's just like a style card. And then I just applied it. And I was like, just like, I just said here, generate 6 successive images for a scene in brand content, outdoor lifestyle, fly fishing. Like that's it. And then bang, like using that same sheet, right? Like we're keeping everything consistent. Like I don't have to prompt for that anymore.
Yeah.
So I thought this is with Nano. This is with
How does it do with the
GPT.
guy in the character consistency? Oh,
Well, I
okay.
added
You've got a
it.
separate.
I added a
Okay,
character sheet
I got you.
for him. But this is the only one that messed up the color of his jacket down here. Actually, this one messed up the color of his. It's probably in the prompt. But just again, like from the looking at.
Did you also do the character sheet in GPT image 2 as well, or I guess in Codex too?
Yeah, that was a Codex one because Codex's character sheets are great because you can get the full view. You get the facial reaction shots and then like the action shots, which is good.
Yeah, that's a cool little flow right there.
Yeah, so I was like, this thing is super interesting because I used it with some other stuff. I used it in a more of like a really hardcore illustration style in Freepik, and it worked really well. Let me see if I have. That's my 2D vector projects. Oh God, spaces. Oh man, we can come back to this. This is a because I was using. Where is this? Let me see if I have. So I was doing some stuff with like a really intricate style, and it's hard to like describe it. Like I don't know how to describe it, but of course I don't make anything easy for myself. Let's see if I have this here. No, it's going to be in Freepik, but there's here. Let's open this up. No, page 1. No, this is not. This is just dead air. Sorry, everyone. While this stuff loads, should have had this prepped, but I didn't think I was gonna remember it. Now I do. But where is this little sheet? This thing right here. This is super cool, and I've been using it for like these illustrations because it has I had like this geometric pattern that I wanted to use, and also like make it look like sort of like ruffled tissue paper with a very specific texture and color palette. But like I asked again for these sort of references to give it like sort of a muted color scheme, like how everything should look, right? And then this is the cool stuff. Is like how good ChatGPT is on some of these images, like how detailed and textured it is. If I was to like open this, like if you go all the way in, like look at all those micro textures, like on the, like it's getting like that sort of like tissue paper look, but like seams, and it's like very, to me, like very impressive that I can do that because photorealism, like it's good, but like some of the stuff is not great. If I probably look better on Figma if I show this, but like you go all the way in, like the depth and the detail on all of this, like each little ridge, each little texture, like this is crazy. So that's what I was saying. Like, and I've been using it to sort of keeping this on the down low because this is a surprise, but I'm showing it on the podcast because why not? But that's just another thing to take into account is that we can, if you're going to we don't have to use text as much anymore. Like this is a good reference now for generating whatever I want from it. This is also a good reference. So it's getting more intuitive to the point where you could build like a style guide in a reference image, I guess is what I'm trying to get at here. And that's basically like a Midjourney mood board in an image. Like it doesn't have to be in code. It doesn't have to be in like 86 layers of JSON. Like it can be within an image, and it can be, that can be a little bit more dynamic instead of having to text edit all the time, right? Like I think that's might be a little hack for everyone to try there. I'll also try to like build something out for like a prompt that'll just build that. I was working with Codex to be like, what do I build? How do I build this? What's good for you? Like asking a million different things. I'll ask it for a prompt to like do that so we can all benefit from that.
Yeah. I mean, that's true. I mean, yeah, it's man, we've really come a long way with prompting, haven't we?
Right.
I mean,
It's just creative.
the early days of Midjourney, you're just typing in all these keywords that sound cool and interesting and see how they play together inside of Discord. And, then you're thinking about structured prompts and the coherence is good where you're thinking about, all the elements of photography and having to describe those things. And, obviously like the effort and energy it takes to just, come up with those things. And then how do you, package that up and sort of like speed up the process and become more efficient. You got prompt structures and, templates that you use and this and that. It's just like the evolution of this has just been really interesting to see. And, just typing in an empty box, was just never the easiest way. And, it was cool from like an exploratory standpoint, but we quickly outgrew that. And it's just, it's continuing to be really fascinating to see how it evolves over time,
It's all context, right? I mean, it's all like what you provide. Like that was, if I had given it one image and said like, oh, build a style reference off of this, like it probably wouldn't be as good as if it had like the full, video file and extracted, 50 frames from it to make it more consistent. So it's just something that I find like always been kind of trying to recreate. This is also like a prop to Midjourney, like how hard it is to recreate style reference and like make it work like it does.
Yeah.
It's not easy. It's not as easy as attaching an image and making things look exactly the same as that one, or mood boards, same thing. Like coming up with that. I've been trying to do that for these other tools and they do it, but you see the lengths that you have to go to get there.
Right.
It was right. Like that would be a lot easier if I didn't have to do that, but I'm hacking around the system to try and figure it out.
Yeah.
But I do like this more visual approach that we're coming to. Like the same stuff with Seedance. Like I don't know if we did this last time, but I'll just pull this up because I feel like it's worth everybody seeing if they haven't seen it. Like these little things with Seedance, like being able to now give visual reference and like choreography on a certain like movement pattern or camera direction or whatever, and it listening to that, because ChatGPT can create these images, right? Like now things can become a little bit more interesting. Like I think this now opens up a lot of stuff.
Well, okay, and going back to this thread, this point that we're making too about text prompt, we're getting away from text. If you see an example like this is Rory's example, right? What if I wanted to create something similar? Do I need you to give me the prompt? No, because it's been done and it's got a reference. So you could take that into any LLM and say, hey, look, I want to do this same thing, but for this. Yeah. Right? So let's do that for this. And, think of this as a template that we're going to, use over and over and over again. Right? And so it's just like that mindset of, it's almost like once it's been created that seed is locked and you can do whatever the hell you want with it. Right? That even goes for iterations on it. It's not like I have to treat this exactly the same. I could take things within that and say, okay, I'm also going to add this, and this, or I'm going to subtract this, and this. But like the point is like that visual aid is the prompt, right? Like it's the strategy to create the prompt. It's not me sitting and say, hey, Rory, what was the prompt, man? Can I get the prompt? Like we're trying to like take a guess at it. I mean, this is how you do it. So, I mean, that's the way I always look at these things too, is when I see something new and interesting, I'll bookmark it and say, okay, if I ever do anything like that, now I've got a reference, right, that I can work from. I'm not starting from zero, ever. I mean, unless I'm just purely just creating to create. But when you get in these situations where you're doing client work, or you're trying to be efficient in anything that you're doing, I mean, you're not starting from zero. Typically, you're trying to relay on something you've either seen that you can build on, or something you've done before that you can build on and adapt, right? So it's just a mindset. I feel like that's worth reiterating in case anybody's still thinking about this differently. But yeah, I mean, like the whole storyboard to video stuff is fascinating. And, we're getting there, man. I mean, we're definitely getting there. I see the Seedance videos that are 15 seconds long, which is again like the longest these things have been for as good as they are. Even in that 15 seconds, I do typically catch one or two things at least that still aren't completely there. But this video thing is a hard thing to crack. I mean, it really is, but it's getting there. Also, one other, just let me get on this pedestal for 1 second. The downfall of these video stuff is still the audio. Still the audio.
You don't like the audio?
No one's gotten the audio right yet. It's the same voices. It's the same giveaway. Usually the audio level is too high immediately. It doesn't feel like it's taking the space into consideration. So if this is in a room, what would her voice sound like in that room?
Do you want to see some examples of how to counteract that?
Versus a studio? You know, I mean, maybe you could prompt and text it that way. But I'm just saying that if audio is going to be a part of, you know, I mean, videos, the video part, but also audio is just as important here. And I'm tired of the same voices. The volume's too loud. It doesn't sound like the volume's in the right space, right? Acoustically. And I'm not even like an audio snob. I'm just making an obvious point that's been a huge like issue in my mind.
So let me sort of show this to see if we can actually, if I have the. So this was a little hack that I did. Let me see if I can find this. I'm in Dreamina here with a. All right, so this is if you're working in Seedance or you're working in this is Dreamina's platform, but if you're working in any of the node-based systems or anything that has Omni-reference from Seedance, the best hack I've found is to upload an audio clip of whatever you want the voice to sound like, and it can really like do a good number here on mimicking the voice and like the spatial depth and everything along those lines. Like, let me see if this one's here. Can you hear that or no?
No.
So I have to hold on. Let me stop sharing.
We got to figure that out though. We're showing we like to show videos and we're not getting the audio coming through. And I'm just thinking like
I haven't show like the window itself. No.
I think you're gonna have to change your audio output too.
Also share audio. There we go. Allow. God, it's not gonna let me do it, huh? All right. Let's. Is this it? Okay. Now you tell me if you can hear this, because I put, you know, this has like been a little bit of a hack. Instead of doing like a 11 Labs voice in Dreamina, I've been going, and you could do this with any Omni-reference. I've done this in Weavy. I've done this in Nodes, or not Nodes, Spaces. Is, you know, you can add just like an audio clip of your voice, and it does account for spatial, you know, depth and things like that. It's actually really smart in that way. But yeah, I don't know. 2 car seats, a 60-pound dog, diaper bags, strollers, snacks, backup snacks. I need a third row. Like, so this is, could you hear that or no?
I could hear that. Sounds like you. It's too loud though.
Well, I have it at max volume here.
But I mean, for the video, like, I don't know. There's just still something that isn't right there.
Let's see. Let's pull this one up on. I have some.
And that's not, and that's not you. I'm talking about the bigger problem in general. But
let's pull this up and just see. I'm just curious of what you think about this, because I think it sounds like me in some sections, but doesn't sound like me in other sections. Like, I was trying to do a dialogue scene just to see how it would. Do you remember the old? Do you remember the old video of the YouTube video of the surfer where the guy's going like, you know, it's so pitted.
Yeah.
All right. So I used that guy as an image reference, and then used his voice reference for this dude.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Nice. Just to be funny. But
that sounds like a very Rory Flynn thing. I like that.
I don't know why it came to mind, but I was like, you know, I might have seen it on like Instagram or something. I'm like, let's use this guy's voice and just see what it's like. I mean, I don't even know if he's alive anymore, but let's see. So yeah, again, open to any and all criticism. I was just making this as to see how it, like, Seedance could handle like a conversation. I'm not a cinematographer or know how to do this stuff, but this is what it sounded like. So let's see.
So I heard the news, bud. Congrats on number 2.
Thanks, man. It's cool, but I got to buy a new car.
Hey-o!
Yeah, I don't know.
2 car seats, a 60-pound dog, diaper bags, strollers, snacks, backup snacks. I need a 3rd row.
So what are we looking at? Minivan? Full armored personnel carrier?
Right. It's like you either drive a tree stub or you look like you're extracting hostages.
Yeah, I hate tree stumps.
But I also don't want to feel like my life ended in a Pottery Barn parking lot.
Preach, my friend.
Dude, someone needs to make a car.
That didn't look like you lost a bet.
Yeah, like something that has enough room for the kids, the dog, the stroller, my fishing gear, but also doesn't suck. Maybe something that can do daycare drop-off, but also looks like I could fist fight a mountain.
So you can hear like the spatial depth is wrong in a lot of that stuff, right? Like it's interesting that it's still it's capable of like, here's a 7-second audio file of me saying whatever the hell I'm saying, and a 7-second audio file of that guy saying so pitted. And like it somewhat keeps it consistent, but like again, I'm doing this manually trying to figure this stuff out. Like it's not necessarily like production grade. Like this is just me like playing around in the background.
Yeah, but that's kind of my point, right? It's
Yeah.
just like that part needs. I would love for that part to catch up.
I mean, it's just crazy. Like the Seedance stuff with the Omni-reference. If anyone hasn't played with it, it's really awesome. Like that you can just, instead of like having to create the perfect reference image every single time, start frame, end frame. Like you can create the character sheet as the reference. You can drop in the voice as the, as another ingredient. You can drop in the environment as another ingredient, the secondary character, like all these different things that you can use as references, and it adheres to them pretty well. It's just like that to me is such a better experience than like the first frame, last frame thing.
Yeah. Too many things can get.
Yeah. If you want someone
Muddled.
to walk into a scene, right? Like,
Yeah.
oh, I want to start with like I'm panning through a location and then I walk in, right? Like you need that Omni-reference feature to be like, okay, here's the person.
Well,
instead of it just
and also, do you know those prompts can get very long too, right? Like
Yeah.
after what? So what? Is there a character limit? What's the coherence? And with the Omni-reference stuff, you're saving
yeah.
characters, right? Because you don't have to describe. I mean, that's one of the benefits, obviously, not all of the benefit, but one of the benefits is you're saving characters on having to go into descriptive detail about it because it's already got the information.
Yeah. It's just I feel like the overall example or the point that I think I'm trying to make is we're moving into a more like visual space of like things
Yeah.
are not as much like write a giant script and then like hopefully it follows it. It's like use this exact thing, use this exact thing, use this exact thing, which makes it a lot easier when you can start to create good images, right? And know how to create images, or at least ask ChatGPT or Google how to make a good image. Go do it now.
Okay. What are you? Yes, and I agree. I agree with all that. What do you? Let's switch to Midjourney for a second.
Yeah.
Have you been using Midjourney lately? What's your updated take on 8.1? I know I ran like quite a few images lately. So I've gotten more reps in with sort of like this new, coherence interpretation of things and blah blah blah, and just kind of getting like more of an understanding as to the shots that I'm getting and what I would expect. I've been seeing some really good things in general from my personalization. That said, in some, I have started to see the old blue and pink hue starting to kind of make its way in, sneaking in the back door and ruining all my photos again. It's not as ridiculous as it was, but it's to the point where I'm going back in and the personalize and ranking more images that have no blue and pink hues to try to offset it again. Like
What is it?
I
It's so
don't know.
weird.
I don't know. It is so annoying.
Is it EXP? Does EXP do it?
EXP was definitely part
culprit?
of the problem. Yeah. But let me see.
Because I was noticing that. I was definitely getting more blue and pink hues when I would go higher on the EXP scale. But
Yeah.
I haven't seen that in a while because I haven't been going super high levels. It's mostly low levels now that I use. Show me some though. I want to see it.
Well,
I want to feel nostalgic.
this isn't like the most perfect example, but this does illustrate the point. So I'm just going to show you this on the screen. This is Ferrari, which has a very, recognizable red hue. And look at the hues on the red.
It's definitely muted.
I mean, this is pink.
Vivid.
This is blush. This is like,
That was close.
and look, you can see the cool lighting on all this. So like I saw this was definitely one of the culprit where I was just like, what the hell is this? You know what I mean? Because it's like, okay, well, screw that. I'm not even gonna mess with that one. Let me see if I've got.
It crushes black and white though, but black and white it's so good.
Yeah.
It's just like.
But like even these, you can see all the blue and pink and blue and blue and pink and
even flowers. Yeah.
It's just it's annoying. It's annoying. So that's my one gripe. That said, I mean the crispness and the the realistic look of these, coupled with the creative interpretation that Midjourney is famous for. Best image model still. Best image model still. I mean, that being said, it depends on the use case. Again, I'm not weighing this in terms of the edit models like Nano and GPT. That's not a fair comparison because those are different things. But in terms of just straight up image gen, I mean, bro, what are we talking about? Let me see if I can like just jump into. I mean, the detail on these
skin
is just ridiculous. I mean, just absolutely ridiculous. I was messing around with some Lil Wayne stuff.
Lil Wayne. Introduced Faye to Lil Wayne last week.
Did you?
Oh yeah.
I mean,
got a big thumbs up of approval on that one.
Did you? Let's go.
Yeah. Now, just like I could ask for Lil Wayne now when we're in front of the TV. Lil Wayne?
Lil Wayne?
Okay. That might make an appearance in the thumbnail.
I'll Yeah, like
look at that.
I mean, dude, there's nothing better in the game for shots of people. You can't convince me otherwise. If you think otherwise, I don't know. Maybe this is an open challenge. Come at me, bro. I mean, I'll go head to head with you on creating real imagery of faces, and this is just unbeatable at this point in time. I mean, this is
and for unique people, like real people, not like perfect people.
Yeah, I mean, like go ugly, go whatever you got to do.
Yeah,
you ain't beating that.
Yeah.
Like the texture and the realism of this has been nuts. And again, like I think we touched on this when we talked about 8.1 releasing, but if you do a lot of the photorealism stuff, probably worth having your own personalization just with photorealism, so you don't muddy the waters. Like I didn't know that up front, so I've kept on with this profile, and just again, like I'm being super picky about what images I select when it comes to photorealism. If it doesn't look real or could convince me that it's real, I'm not selecting it.
Yeah,
not selecting it. And now we've got that personalization on the training data where this is just, like this is William Dafoe. Let me see if I like
with a knife too. Look at that.
Rah.
Nice.
Yeah. Like these are, it's just so good. It's so good.
It's the even the focus is incredible. Like it does the fall off better than any other tool.
This is my work is mysterious
Yes.
original prompt from V7, which I put in to describe to use as, and that's kind of what I've been playing around with too. I've been trying to like create images I've created before, but getting them to the better quality now, because I'm also just trying to like update my site and some of that stuff. So I'm assuming that maybe the older prompts aren't all ideal for this new coherence. So basically what I'm doing is I'm just taking an image, dropping it into describe. Then I'll go over here, I'll run. So maybe I'll just give you an example, right? So like, let's just drop this in here. Let's go all the way up. And then, all I'm going to do is I'm going to go here, take this as an image prompt. I'll maybe throw a little bit of EXP in there, and I'm going to run just like an image weight without an image weight, and one with one. Because I'm also trying to understand how close it's going to get just with its describe functionality versus giving it the juice, right? And that's kind of like the way that I was just quickly updating some of the work. So if you have to update work, because like I don't know about you, but like anytime I show stuff that I've done, even a year ago, even if it's good, I don't want to show people old stuff, because it's just like it can look so much more real now. So this is just sort of like a little hack I was doing, is just kind of like taking images that I like, dropping them into describe, then using them as an image reference, right? Doing the weighting. I would copy and paste sort of the XP and the IW so I could just quickly like boom, 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 right?
I'm curious to see what those came out like now.
Oh, let me
Run something.
So take this. And like I said, if I was going through this to save time, I would just do this, copy this, right? And then all I have to do is go boom, boom, boom.
Color's so good. It's crazy. I've seen a lot of people comparing Luma Uni.
Yes, yeah, we should talk about that too. We should touch on that.
But the color is so good. Like I can never get away from the color. That's always something that feels like it has like 10x the shades of what the other what the other tools do.
Yeah,
It always gets this unique blend of like so good.
yeah, and I mean, not every image has got that super ultimate crisp as a selector. I mean, maybe if there's a knock, it's that, but I don't. You're not going to get that in. You're not going to get that in any model except for maybe like a Nano. But even then, it's like the people don't. There's just no creativity with the imagery.
Yeah, unless you really go for it.
Unless you really go for it, which again, it's like the trade-off of time, and like it's just those constant like things. But anyway, like I think that was kind of like what I noticed in general, like just playing with it a lot more recently. They did mention something about 8.2 coming, and I'll be honest, I didn't sit on that office hours, but apparently that's going to help with personalization accuracy. Produce more exciting and varied outputs, and reintroduce bolder and weirder visual styles. I like these 3 bullets.
Cool.
Let's go with 3. Like these 3 bullets. I'm tired of seeing like the coherence. Tired of seeing the quality. Yeah, but like these 3 bullets. That's kind of exciting. I think they said something about this launching by the end of May, which we're 2 weeks away. So maybe. I don't know. It's interesting. Here's also what they're working on: style balance, weirdness levels, personalization behavior.
Where's the edit model?
Where is the edit model?
We got a V9 reference there already.
Yeah, let's just kind of quickly go through this because I haven't gone through it in its entirety, but they're talking about weirdness a lot here. Let's see. Allowing more edgy and unusual generations. Again, another thing that sets you apart from other
that's it.
models.
Yeah.
Avoiding outputs becoming unusably chaotic.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That was weird 1,000, back in the day.
Edit model development. Here we go. Actively being trained and tested. Planned capabilities include object replacement, in-painting, out-painting, multi-object editing. Day 1 release may ship with fewer capabilities in long term. That's always their plan.
Does that mean it's like an editing model as in like the editing model they have right now? Like not like an actual like we're going to take this image and do something with it?
I mean, look at this though. Separate edit models. And then it's also, like I have heard on past conversations that like the Nano similarities, like not being exactly like it, but in essence being something similar to that. So that's the way I was thinking about it. It better not be.
The way it's saying is object replacement, in painting, out painting, multi-object editing. That sounds kind of like what's already there. That doesn't sound like an edit model. That sounds like it's the editor. I hope I'm wrong about that one.
And what's there's some ambiguity in these notes.
Yeah.
Because like I think a better way to describe this is more feature based. This is something like swapping, replacing, but like adding, subtracting, color change it. I would rather lay it out that way than this. This sounds like just the functionality itself, which I think lends itself to some ambiguity there, to your point. But it's reportedly moving slowly internally. Yeah. I don't see a date, but
V8 early V9 work is underway.
There you go.
Larger scale data improvements.
And they're talking about an 8.3, new data improvements, additional tuning work. Then 9, focused on larger scale data model improvements. David noted bigger models are still needed for major gains in prompt understanding, coherence, structural consistency. But aesthetics alone can improve substantially before V9 arrives.
Huh. Interesting. That whole wording of that note.
You're not liking that.
Model, no, it don't make me feel too warm and fuzzy on the inside.
Yeah. You're right to be leery.
Like we're just updating the editor.
Yeah, you're right to be leery.
Since like V6 or whenever that was, they haven't done anything with it. So maybe that's. I mean, it's just like what I've been doing though recently. A lot of stuff I've been doing in Seedance is like using Midjourney, because it's ingredients now. I just can like actually build something that's cooler in Midjourney, and then like here's the environment, here's the character, right? Like I can do that now, or just like take the environment, take the character out of Midjourney, create the character sheet with GPT, throw them in there, and then it's like here's the ingredients. Which it's nicer now than having to build, like I said, that first frame. Like I don't have to build that necessary first frame. I can just draw a sketch of how I want it to look, and also that put that in there. So it's becoming more. I forget who the dude was recently that had the 20 or 30 minute video that's incredible, and it's all Midjourney and like Seedance. Trying to think of who exactly it was.
The Goblin guy or whatever.
Yeah, Goblin guy. Yeah,
Goblin guy or
Gossip Goblin.
Gossip Goblin. Yeah. Okay.
Is that
it sounds like. I think that might be it.
Because I think like it looks so good because obviously it's it has the Midjourney aesthetic. This one here, I should pull this up real quick just so if anyone hasn't seen this, I would definitely say go check it out. Here, let me share my screen real quick.
Yeah, go for it. I think that's probably all the major things I'm seeing in these office hours. Anyway, I think it's more on these models. I am curious about the edit model date. Like, do we have an ETA on that? I mean, sooner the better.
What's funny is you can, would hope so, yes. But like anyone who's used Midjourney for a long time can look at this and just immediately go, that's Midjourney. You can just, it just has the vibe, it has the look. It's very like
colors are dialed in.
Yeah, this one was great. Like I thought this was really, really solid work, and interesting that they used Midjourney and it wasn't like the standard, talking points of it's nano, it's whatever. It's like, yeah, good because
there's no API and it's just a slower process. It's just the reality. It's a slower process.
And this is what it could be. This is what it could be with them if they wanted to just like have some consistency like this, and we talk about this from a place of love. So if they had the capabilities of just like being able to build within a world that's not necessarily just like one-shot images where you can build within a world, people would see a lot more of this stuff that's coming from them than it would from, Nano or ChatGPT. Like because it's just a
totally different approach, right or wrong. I'm not here to say, but they're not catering to enterprise. They're not catering to sort of the API route, which also has some correlation to enterprise. They're just kind of like in their own lane. Yeah. And, they always David always likes to sort of anchor it with saying they're a research lab. And to this point, I I haven't really seen what that looks like. And I think we won't until we know whatever the hell they're doing with the hardware or secret projects that they're doing, which, you know, they've been talking about for a long time. And, you know, I mean, I think this is fair criticism. We haven't heard nothing about it. I mean, I thought we were going to hear something about it a year ago. Then I thought we were going to hear something about it, you know, before Christmas. And, you know, we heard that. We heard that over and over again. We haven't gotten anything. And I don't really know, you know, just Midjourney's got its own lane, but we don't really know what that lane totally looks like. We can't even envision the roadmap yet until we know what some of these other projects are. You know, I mean, we kind of did talk about it a little bit with the video thing. It sounds like they're kind of, you know, maybe moving backwards on that being really a priority, but then they've also unlocked the ability to kind of go back and start researching the 3D thing again.
I hope so.
You know, and so I don't know. There's still a lot of things about Midjourney. You know, we're both huge fans of Midjourney that I think the average person doesn't really know. A lot of people think Midjourney's was a thing. You know, it's not still a thing. You know, and I just think there's so much TBD with them that we really don't know. I mean, Midjourney's always been playing the long game. You know.
Yeah, and it's like, you know, big thing for me is presentations. I give a lot of them, right? Whenever I'm doing presentations and need imagery, I Midjourney right away. Like, I don't go to Nano to create imagery for like supporting images. I go to Midjourney because it's awesome and it looks really good and it looks different and it doesn't look like stock ever. And it's like, you know, it just has a different vibe to it, and I will always go there for that regardless. But, you know, for something like this, when people are going to start to make content like this, it's going to be easier. I've seen more 20-minute stuff from the AI space than ever, and it's like, if you just want it to look a little different and don't look like everyone else, you go to a film, like I've seen a lot of the film festival stuff, and like the aesthetic's the same because you can only use certain models to make consistent stuff, right? But like, start to dial that in, and like that's what our content's going to become. So we say this out of a place of love, Midjourney. Just like let's world build. We want to world build. We want to story tell a little bit. Just like make it easier.
Yeah, the world building thing kind of
Yeah.
hushed a little bit, and maybe they pivoted on to some degree, or maybe that's just more of the hardware stuff. But I just remember that coming up a lot more often, you know, as like as sort of like a future destination for them. But hey man, we're getting close to the end here. We should probably wrap soon. Yeah. I do want to bring up one other thing that we should mention here. We've both seen it. Some of the folks may have seen this, but this is great. This is great. Excellent. This just is the perfect chef's kiss for all the hate for the AI slopper, you know, troll crowd out there. I mean, you know, if you've got any experience with putting your work out there, doing anything with AI, making sure to call it out, and then it's done any sort of real engagement, you're going to find a troll hiding underneath your post. Guaranteed. You know, and if you pass sort of that viral threshold, you're really going to get it. So this to me was amazing because if I got my story correct, this guy here, let's give him a proper shout out. SHL0MS was basically like, hey, I generated an image in the style of a Monet painting using AI. Please describe in as much detail as possible what makes this inferior to a real Monet painting. Like, just the wording of that is just the perfect bait here. And ultimately, you know, you get these great comments. You know, it's just, it's Monet-ish, yes, certainly pretty, but at the risk of sounding pretentious, it, in my opinion, would not hold up next to the real thing. Seen face-to-face in a museum. The first time I really saw Monet's painting up close, it was astonishing. The brushstrokes here aren't as precise, less subtle variation in the shapes of color. The over effect is smudgier. You know, you get all this
high
the
school
color
level work.
looks like high school. Yeah, there you go. Looks like high school level art 101 work. Not even close. No cohesion of elements. I'm disappointed I have to even point this out. There's no cohesion in depth. Blah blah blah. I mean, just you know, thing after thing, and then you know, 24 hours go by. This guy's collecting all these responses. It takes off and reveals that this is actually a Monet painting that he cropped into. And it's just the perfect encapsulation of this stuff, Rory, because, you know, I think about this a lot, but I'm like, you know what? I think at some point I might just stop saying that these are AI imagery or even attaching the platform. You know, it's just maybe I'll just describe what I was doing to create these images and let people guess. Because, you know, as soon as you say that, flags go up, people have opinions, they get very emotionally charged about their opinion on this stuff. Man. And I just thought this was amazing. And I'm surprised no, you know, we didn't think of this to do this. I mean, but it's great. It is so great on so many levels.
Because we used to do this with clients. We used to give them 2 different images. One was real, one was AI, and say the real one was AI, and say the other one was real, and they always choose the real one no matter what. They're like, that one looks better. Then we swapped it; it was the same thing. So it was like. It's like they're just saying it because it's AI. They're not even looking at it.
They're not even looking at it. And, you know, like that is a great, I'm glad you brought up that example because I think, you know, there was a long time ago too, where I would do some of these things where I'm like, hey, see if you can guess which of these images are AI and put them, you know, head by head. And, you know, like almost no one would get it perfect. So there was that sort of like mini test you could do. But then also when you get in this work, one of my clients, I think about one of my clients specifically on this. I was creating imagery that, you know, I've just seen so many images. I've got so much in the bank here between real photography and then the AI stuff. And I'm like, this stuff looks real. I die on a hill for it. And then somebody, you know, internally in the client says, you know, this just looks way too AI, this, and this. And I'm like, okay. And I'm like, I don't see it. So I, you know, take it to third party and I say, hey, what do you think of this image? You know, or even take it to an LLM and point out what they pointed out and say, hey, do you think this is this and this is this? And, you know, how certain would you be that this is an actual real photo? And boom, you know, like, it's like, no, this is a real photo. You know, it's just like, there's that bias. There's just that inherent bias that occurs on either side of the equation that people can't see through. You just can't see through it. And I just think that's so funny. You know, because people, the minute they know it's AI, they're looking for the AI. Instead of looking at an image for 2 seconds, they're looking at it for 15 seconds.
Yeah.
Right?
Like
They're looking at me, you know, holding something in my hand where maybe one of the fingers is sort of bent like this, and that's now AI. And it's just like, if you've ever captured photography, maybe with a faster shutter speed, you're going to get things that maybe don't look exactly right in the, you know, in a still image. And I don't know. That to me isn't talked about enough. Like that component, like I remember working with that client. It was right at the beginning. I was just like, oh boy, you know, because there's an inherent bias here. How do I explain this to the client? You know, there were several examples of it too. And it's just like, I think, you know, this is bleeding in here. You know, I think because you guys know this is AI, we're looking too closely at some of this stuff. And that's sort of like the catch-22. If you're a brand, you do want to inspect the work if it's AI image generated. On the other hand, you don't want to inspect it too much because then you're going to overanalyze it.
It's also clients too. They just want to say something. You know, it's like give them even more ammunition to say something with like, oh, it's AI. So, let me really find something. You know, because it can never be good on the first pass. Nothing can ever be good on the first pass, right? Like
that's right.
However many of you have had clients and something gets by on the first pass, like,
I mean, you might as well go buy a lottery ticket.
Yeah, right. Like it's just like someone's always got to say something, even if it's your boss. Unless you have a really good boss or you have a good like team or whatever, someone's always gonna find something. There's always like, nah.
Can you change this flower to yellow here?
How about we move it 6 pixels to the left?
Yeah.
You know, I don't know. What about the color? It's too saturated, isn't it?
That's what I'm saying. I mean, you know, I think there's a real problem with that. But this was a really good social experiment that I think a lot of us have probably seen. But it was awesome. It was awesome.
I was wondering. I mean, like it's so. You mean to credit. I don't know if this is a digital scan or if this is a photo of the actual image, but there is definitely, when you see it on a screen, it's pixelated. When you see it in real life, it's totally different. Like there is that to not.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. Yep.
To like, you know, not to
fully
just totally
capture
bash everyone.
Fully capture the
That's what I mean. Like when you see it in person, you can see like the textures and the bumps on the the paint where it dried in a certain way, and like paint can produce color that that like digitally can't be captured because of just like the blending of it. Regardless, I'm not trying to say one thing or the other. Obviously, people just hated it because they were just like, "This is AI," and I just want to hate it. You know, we're not taking anything away from.
Did you see
people.
this one too? I love this one. This guy goes, I think Monet would have wanted people to see the best version of his work, so I compiled all the critiques everyone had and generated an improvement. It's just amazing. Just amazing.
Insane. Like it's just like get over it. Like Hollywood. Do you see the stuff with the Hollywood where it's like Academy Awards? Like it can't be nominated for an award or something like that if it had AI. I'm butchering this, but the whole concept was like, you couldn't do it, and then everyone's like, why not? And then they're like, well, you have to disclose it. And the reason they want you to disclose it is because of this exactly, just because it's just like the immediate, like it's a backhanded way of getting everyone upset. At it
100%
for no reason, right?
100%.
And you got the goat himself, Peter Jackson, over there, Mr. Lord of the Rings and everything, goes like what's the big deal? It's just like VFX. It's like he's like I don't understand why everyone's freaking out. It's like I get it. People think it's just going to be from now on everything is only made this way, right? Like I think that's another problem that I have with everyone. It's like they just future project as if everything is going to be made this way, like every movie is made with an iPhone, or like,
and it's the whole movie, whole movie, Rory, the whole movie.
And like you obviously look at something. I'm sure you like looking at analog film photos as much as you like looking at digital photos, right? Like there's a place for both. Like it doesn't have to be one or the other. Totally. I personally like the disposable camera look. Like I love that, So it's like it's not one thing or the next. It's not gonna be the whole thing.
That's the thing. Everything gets too simplified and all or nothing. They're just the reality is like not to get too like I don't know what you call
deep hours.
Deep hours. We need another After Dark.
We do.
But oh man, I lost what I was gonna say.
Sorry, I screwed it up with.
No. Yeah.
But it's not one thing or the other, like you said. It's not going to be one thing. It's not going to be the other. It's not going to be like all in on this, all in on that. I think it's the same arc as what you saw with CGI, like where everyone loves Jurassic Park 1, but then as soon as you start introducing like, fake dinosaurs, everyone's like, I kind of want to go back to, Jurassic Park 1 or Star Wars. Right? Like everyone likes the flaws in Star Wars, the new ones. Everyone's like, everything is CGI, right? So it'll have its time, it'll peak, and people probably want to go back and they'll do their way. You'll have like your whole indie community that'll make things one way. You'll have your whole indie AI community that'll make things another way, like whatever. It's just like appreciate that people are making stuff. Like that's it. Who cares how they make it.
And people can do more stuff.
Yeah.
You can break walls, you can break career path restrictions. You can do anything now. I mean, what was I going to do? I mean, I could have stayed in marketing for the next 20 years until I hopefully retire, and been doing something I, loved, but, to love something continuously decade after decade, probably not a reality for me. I like to change and I like, experimentation and this and that and the other. And it's just like, I'm doing different things now. I mean, I've completely pivoted my career. So have you. That's not possible without AI. And, that has happened to a lot of people now. I mean, and so it's just a really interesting thing. I mean, obviously, like the AI conversation as a whole is very polarizing. It's not inherently good or it's not inherently bad. I'm just saying that there are really good pieces about it, and to be on one side of the fence or the other completely is just, I think, objectively wrong. I think it's got to be somewhere in the middle, right? Even if that is 95% human. Still that 5%, you can't sit here and tell me that all AI is bad, right? I was just going to say, I think like today's society is absolute. It pretends like everything's are absolute truths. And the reality is there's only like a few absolute truths in anything. There's like on one hand, absolute truths. So with that said, anything in between has different pieces of it. And people just like to put AI into the absolute truth bucket,
just like get over it. I'm happy people want to make stuff. Just keep making stuff. Keep being weird. Like that's it. Like that's what this is all about. You know, like I like that people just make stuff, and it makes them happy that they make stuff. You know, some people cook, some people knit. You're still making stuff. I think.
Cook, knit.
Yeah, you cook.
Do you knit?
No, I don't. But
Okay.
I appreciate it.
Maybe that's
I
who
appreciate
we
people like stuff. Oh, we tell your, you know, say that.
Tell your local. What do they
I
call
don't
them?
know.
People that hem your pants. I mean, not necessarily a seamstress.
Go seamstress. Yeah.
Good call, man.
Yeah.
I mean, I would not have pulled the
Crocheter.
seamstress. Yeah, crocheter.
Crocheter. I did. I think that's it. Like, I think that's the. I think that's the right term.
Seamstress. Dude. I major props on that. I was not going to come up with that. I was not going to pull that out of the depths of my brain. Like, there's no way.
It's a good one. It might be useful in a Midjourney prompt here or there. So we'll bank that one for later.
Love it.
But should we wrap that one up after seamstress?
Let's wrap it. And as long as Rory and I are not traveling, we'll be back next week. Week.
Yes.
And we appreciate you guys joining us. And we'll, Rory, anything else you want to say before we go?
If you're still here, if you're still here, you're probably subscribed already. But if you're not, do that anyway. And if you haven't told someone, you have to tell your local seamstress. Let's add your tailor in there. Is that maybe your dry cleaning person?
Yeah. Do the whole ecosystem of
ecosystem there. Mm-hmm. Like go to your local car dealership and talk to them. They might
like that. Like that one.
They might car salesman. We haven't had that one, I don't think. I think we've had a bunch of things here. Maybe you're. That's it. That's all I got. I'm not going to waste everyone's time anymore.
I like it.
We're running to the end here of occupation.
We are. But it was fun, man. It was fun.
Yeah.
I'm glad we were able to do this, and we'll be back next week. We'll catch you guys in the next one.
All right. See ya.
Peace.